Today, we're diving deep into the neuroscience behind one of the toughest problems out there, addiction. And we're going to do it through the lens of Judith Grisel's incredible book, Never Enough.
So, picture this. It's 1985. Judith Grisel is 22, she's homeless, and she's coming down from a massive drug binge in some cheap motel in Florida. As the drugs start to run out, her friend just looks at her and says something that completely changes the course of her life. He says that for people like them, there would simply never be enough. And in that moment, she knew, deep down, that he was right. And that one single, terrifying question, why? Why would there never be enough? It just took over her life. She decided right then and there that the only way to get a real answer was to become a scientist and figure it out for herself. It's an amazing story. Her journey took her from the absolute depths of addiction all the way to a PhD in behavioral neuroscience. Okay, so to really get a handle on how addiction can hijack a brain, we first have to understand what the brain is designed to do in the first place. Let's start with its basic programming. You know, when you boil it all down, our brain is constantly doing two fundamental things. First, it's taking in everything that's happening around us. And second, it's physically changing itself based on those experiences. And this ability to adapt, it's the key to everything. It's how we learn, how we survive, and, as we're about to see, it's also the key to how addiction takes hold. Think about it. Your brain can't possibly pay attention to everything all at once. That would be total chaos. So to help us survive, it has to be what you'd call a contrast detector. It's hardwired to just filter out all the boring background noise and instead flag whatever is different. Things that could be an opportunity like food or a potential danger. It's looking for things that are newsworthy. And the circuit that's responsible for this is the mesolimbic dopamine system. It's basically our brain's internal alarm, the part that yells, "Hey, pay attention, this is important." It's what creates that feeling of eager anticipation. That thrill you get when something good might be about to happen, whether it's a delicious meal or, a winning lottery ticket. And here's the absolute crucial point. Natural rewards, like music or a good conversation, they kind of give this system a gentle nudge. But addictive drugs, they slam the accelerator. They just flood the brain with dopamine in a way that evolution never planned for, making these substances feel incredibly, incredibly newsworthy. But the brain doesn't just sit there and take this. It is designed, above all else, to maintain balance. And this powerful defensive reaction is where the vicious cycle of addiction really kicks into gear. See, the brain's number one job is something called homeostasis, but you can just think of it like a thermostat for your feelings. If a drug suddenly pushes you way up into euphoria, the brain's job is to do whatever it has to do to pull you right back down to your baseline, back to your personal set point of just feeling okay. Now, scientists have a name for this. They call it the opponent process theory. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. For every action, the brain creates an equal and opposite reaction. So that initial high from a drug, that's state A, and the brain's counterattack to bring things back to normal, that's state B. And as you can see here, it's always the perfect opposite. This chart just lays it out so perfectly. Take opiates. State A, the initial effect, is euphoria. Well, the brain's opposite reaction, state B, is dysphoria and irritability. The drug gives you pain relief. Withdrawal creates pain. The drug helps you relax. Withdrawal makes you restless. See, withdrawal isn't some brand new feeling. It's just the brain's powerful overcorrection in the other direction. Now, this opponent processing is a brilliant survival mechanism. But when you repeatedly overwhelm it with these powerful drugs, that same amazing adaptation, well, it becomes a trap. So let's look at what happens with the very first high. The drug's effect, state A, is powerful and it's immediate. And because this is all new, the brain's counterattack, state B, is kind of slow to get going, and it's pretty weak. So the net result is exactly what you see here. You get this intense high, followed by a pretty mild, manageable low. But here's the thing. The brain learns, and it learns fast. With repetition, that opponent B process gets way faster, way stronger, and it lasts a whole lot longer. Now, the drug still produces the same initial A process, but it's immediately met with this massive, rapid counterattack from the brain. The high just shrinks to almost nothing, while the low becomes this deep, painful, and relentless craving. And that, right there, is the biological definition of tolerance. It's the dead end of addiction. The whole reason for using completely flips. You're no longer seeking pleasure. You're just desperately trying to run from the misery of withdrawal, just to get back to feeling normal. And the real-world consequences of this neurological cycle are just catastrophic. For example, just in the first 10 years of the 21st century, there was a 400% increase in lethal overdoses from prescription opiates among women alone, driven by this same escalating, desperate need to just escape the low.
So after all this brain science, what's the big takeaway? What does this really mean for how we should think about addiction? I think the most important thing to understand is this. An addict's brain isn't broken or defective. It's actually working perfectly. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, adapt. The tragedy is that it's adapting to this overwhelming artificial stimulus that completely hijacks the entire system and leads to a state of absolute desperation.
Judith Grisel puts it so well. She says the most profound law of drug use is simply this: there is no free lunch. Every single high has to be paid for with an equal and opposite low. And when you keep using, that debt just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it feels completely insurmountable. And that brings us to this final, really provocative thought from Grisel's work. She concludes that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's choice. And that reframes the whole problem, doesn't it? It suggests the fight isn't just a battle against a substance. It's a struggle to reclaim the very freedom of choice that the brain's own brilliant but hijacked adaptation process has stolen away.